So if somebody is exploring this, now that we've seen sort of something that didn't work out, what does work out is the question. And so what's sort of, let's, starting from the bottom up, what's the draw to be able to do something to utilize your land for an RV park? And I've seen a few pieces of land do this they look successful from the outside because there's always RVs there. But what is kind of the draw?
So there's a couple different ways that you can look at it. One way would be like the quote unquote traditional RV park where you're pretty much leasing out those individual slips for an entire season, which, some people leave their RVs out there all year long because they have the lease and, you don't have to store it. You just have to winterize it. Some people will bring their campers out for a weekend here and there, but regardless, their lease on that spot is for a whole year. So that was kind of the avenue that this group was coming at it from, looking at it as an annual lease so that it was very predictable income. And they could kind of accommodate a few people or a few renters a little bit better than they could just having the turn and burn mentality, which would be case number two, which would be short-term leases where you're looking at like maybe a week or a weekend or 2 weeks tops. Some of the higher ups in our company have had conversations and given me the Cliff's Note versions of those conversations with higher ups from other companies who kind of specialize in those short-term rental agreements and getting those promoted. And the number one area where they absolutely cannot even touch demand as far as being able to fulfill it is those short-term RV rental spots. So as with everything else in real estate, location, location, location. This property that I had listed was right on the edge of what would be a great location as far as its proximity to like the Omaha metropolitan area. It's close to the river, which gives you that another potential draw for people who want to, go out and goof around on the river and then not drive all the way home. There's a boat launch that's right down the road from this place, which adds to the draw considerably. And then it's very close to an interstate too, so it's easy to get to. So looking at all of those criteria, kind of as a whole, this place it's ripe for the picking as far as that goes. Turning it into an RV park, it's just like I said, the sellers or the landowners right now, they don't have any desire to go through that work. They would much rather sell it as is and then have somebody else turn it into what it could be.
So was that sort of a conditional of this that there was a request to make those improvements to it before sale?
No, no. So what we ran into was it was bad timing more than anything. And then, like I said, the group thought they knew what they were getting into, but they weren't quite learned up enough on it. So we ran into bad timing because there was a nationwide shortage of electrical transformers. And so this is a good point here to add to I don't know if you guys do show notes or anything like that, but this is a good point as far as if you're looking at a property to potentially develop it. One of the things you need to understand is what the power district is that you're in. Because we're right on the edge of that Omaha, Council Bluffs metropolitan area. So one side of the interstate there is Mid-America, which is like the power company in Iowa. And the other side of the interstate is a co-op out of I'm trying to think. I can't remember the counties that make up the co-op, but it's like 3 counties in Missouri. And then this little finger that goes into Iowa on that side of the river or on that side of the interstate. And we just happen to be on that it's Atchison Holt. Sorry. Atchison Holt is the co-op that has the power service to that side of the interstate.
So they probably had some kind of a cap on that then?
Yeah, exactly. And since they're a much smaller operation than Mid-American, and we were looking at putting 6 transformers in the ground, they so supply and demand, we all know how that works. There was very limited supply, and it was a lagging indicator of of the labor shortages that happened during COVID. That these transformers, now we were running out of that supply because the companies that manufactured them had been shut down for so long, and they worked their way through all their back stock and then didn't have time to catch up yet. So I'm not an expert. Don't quote me on this. I don't anticipate that somebody coming in to buy this property this year would have the same issue that we had last year. But because of those shortages, the transformers were extremely expensive. And because of the numbers of transformers that we were looking at purchasing for this property, Atchison Holt, rather than coming out and putting them in the ground and that being part of the suite of services that comes with being an Atchison Holt customer, they were actually going to require that those transformers be paid for up front because they would the life of those transformers they wouldn't feasibly be able to recoup just from charges to the customer. They wouldn't be able to recoup even their cost, let alone have any sort of profit going forward.
So in something like this, when you're looking at it from an investment perspective, like you can have the land, you can have the location, you can have the price even kind of dialed in, but there could be something as simple as which power district you're in that could derail things. And that's, I mean, for one thing, I mean, that's why it's important to have, like you said, like a 90-day investigation period where you jump in and dissect it. Don't just jump in and just grab the land and think you have it. Like you've got to do your homework before you jump into something like that. Because imagine if they had jumped in, that would have been a whole different mess.
Well, so then that kind of comes into the next thing. Like if we had an investor who had liquid capital that they could hold on to the property without doing that part of the development, and it still made financial sense to hold on to it for a year, maybe 2 years while the supply chain got caught up, then that would have been an unfortunate speed bump, but it would have just been a speed bump. It wouldn't have been a, whoa, this is dead end. We got to kill this deal. So what happened was because they were unable to get the electrical in, then the bank came back and said, well, we appraised this as fully developed, full service, everything's ready to go. That's not the case. So they changed their numbers, which then made it so that we couldn't get financing approved. So that's why the deal fell apart. So it was one of those things. Again, they thought they knew what they were getting into. Fortunately, we structured the deal so that they had a chance to figure out what they knew and what they didn't know, and how to learn what they didn't know. And I guess, it wasn't an ideal situation, but nobody's worse off because of it. So at least it was a fair death to the deal.
And I think that's a really, really good illustration on exactly why somebody looking to acquire land wants to work with somebody like you or one of the other agents in our company. And just thinking about if somebody, if they just grab, I always pick on a residential because it's different, right? Like it's like one of us isn't going to be able to jump in and sell residential as easily, either. So if somebody had jumped in and didn't really understand the nuances of land, they might not have structured the deal that way because, again, residential tends to be a high velocity sale cycle, where it's like get in, get out, get the sale done. If that had happened here, you would have people in a very bad situation. They would have invested in something they couldn't capitalize on, like you said, for up to 2 years and couldn't even finance. I mean, I guess the finance would have stopped the deal anyway. So that kind of stops my discussion there. But let's say if they had the cash, they jumped in and they couldn't realize any gains for like 2 years. That's a situation where nobody's happy. And it also hurts your reputation and, their opinion of you in the transaction cycle as well. There's a whole slew of things that experience makes up for there. So, I wanted to ask you, you mentioned how the bank came in and they analyzed the deal and they had assessed it based on the improvements already being made and those had not been made. when you're looking at land like this, what are you looking at in terms of value? And I guess the better question is, what's too much? What's too little? How do you look at that in terms of assessing the investment opportunity there?
So, excuse me, I got
Yeah, you got a plague in your
you
village there. I
can
know
edit out like you can edit out a pause, right?
that.
Okay, sorry. Um, so yeah, to answer your question here, it depends, just like everything else, right? That's the go-to answer for a real estate agent. Um, in this instance, again, your number one qualifier for this property is its location. And that 100% has to do with, we've got big seasonal events like the College World Series for baseball. We've got the Olympic trials for swimming. We've got all of the, uh, Nebraska, Iowa Western Community College. They have big football seasons. So there's a lot of seasonal draw that brings people to Omaha. And especially since COVID, a lot of people would prefer to bring their home with them in that tenement on wheels, as opposed to flying into town, staying in a hotel, being, shoehorned into a high density, high risk situation where they're exposed to a bunch of people that they've never been exposed to and all the germs that come with them. So post COVID, definitely we've seen a huge spike in people wanting to be just outside of town, right? In this instance, proximity to Omaha worked in our favor because it does make for a really good location for an RV park, especially since you don't have to go, and you have to go about 90 feet on gravel from when you get off the interstate to when you're into the RV park. So it's, for all intents and purposes, it's paved all the way. You've got easy access because it's right next to the interstate. It's on an exit ramp to the interstate. So it's not, getting there, you don't have to add any extra consideration as far as, what if the weather's bad? Am I going to be able to get the camper out over the, the minimum maintenance road, or is it going to be washed out? You don't have to worry about any of that stuff. The biggest thing you have to worry about where we were at is that it is still a 45-minute drive into Omaha for all those seasonal events, like I said. So it's pretty close, not super close. For a lot of people, that's kind of the draw. And at the same time, there's plenty of stuff to do. Like I said, there's a 60-acre pond that's got all kinds of fish in it. There's you're 5 minutes outside of the town that's right there. If you need to go in for groceries, or you need to go get gas, or you need to, you just don't want to cook, so you want to go get pizza, there's a Casey's right there. So it's that mesh point of convenience of having all your stuff from town, but also being out.